Today is January 19th, 2026, and this is Read Through the Bible.
Hi, everyone.
And today is also
Martin Luther King Day.
Which means that some of you, it's a federal holiday, maybe have the day off. Hope you enjoy your 3-day weekend. If you're a Bears fan, maybe you're mourning the Bears' loss last night. But it was a great game. They had a great season. But anyway, we are reading today in the book of Acts, and we're going to read Acts 24 and 25, and they can be summed up just by two words, by two names of people. 24 is Felix, and 25 is
Festus.
And going back, 22 is
Paul talks to the Jewish crowds.
The crowds, and 23
Jewish council.
And then we have
Felix,
Festus,
and then 26 will be King Agrippa.
And that's just the broadest of outlines, but would be super helpful if you kind of work just a little bit and associate these chapters with those names. You'll find that if you do that, then Acts all of a sudden, like you get more of a grasp on what the book of Acts is about. We talked about how chapter 21, Paul arrives in Jerusalem and how everything slows down. He's in jail now at Caesarea, and he's going to talk with the governor there.
Because there was a plot against him in Jerusalem, and they were going to kill him, so he was taken to safety in Caesarea.
Yep. So brought down, and now some Jews come from Jerusalem to Caesarea to then accuse him. Okay, Acts chapter 24, verse 1. And after 5 days, the high priest Ananias came down with some elders and a spokesman, one Tertullus. The spokesman, I think, was a prominent lawyer or someone to argue the case, because he's the one that argues the case. And they laid before the governor their case against Paul. And when he had been summoned, Tertullus began to accuse him, saying,
"Since through you we enjoy much peace, and since by your foresight, most excellent Felix, reforms are being made for this nation, in every way and everywhere we accept this with all gratitude."
That's some flattery going on there.
Yep, for sure. Verse 4, "But to detain you no further, I beg you in your kindness to hear us briefly. For we have found this man a plague, one who stirs up riots among all the Jews throughout the world and is a ringleader of the sect of the Nazarenes. He even tried to profane the temple, but we seized him. By examining him yourself, you will be able to find out from him about everything of which we accuse him."
The Jews also joined in the charge, affirming that all these things were so.
And when the governor had nodded to him to speak, Paul replied.
Okay, so this is Paul before Felix.
Right, he gets to make his own defense.
Yep. "Knowing that for many years you've been a judge over this nation, I cheerfully make my defense. You can verify that it was not more than 12 days since I went up to worship in Jerusalem, and they did not find me disputing with anyone or stirring up a crowd, either in the temple or in the synagogues or in the city. Neither can they prove to you what they now bring up against me. But this I confess to you, that according to the way, which they call a sect, I worship the God of our fathers, believing everything laid down by the law and written in the prophets, having a hope in God, which these men themselves accept, that there will be a resurrection of both the just and the unjust. So I always take pains to have a clear conscience toward both God and man. Now after several days I came to bring alms to my nation and to present offerings. And while I was doing this, they found me purified in the temple without any crowd or tumult. But some Jews from Asia, they ought to be here before you to make an accusation, should they have anything against me, or else let these men themselves say what wrongdoing they found when I stood before the council. Other than this one thing, that I cried out while standing among them, it is with respect to the resurrection of the dead that I am on trial before you today." And that was the famous statement of what Paul said right there in the council in chapter 23, verse 6. And that split everybody, because the Pharisees believed in the resurrection, not Sadducees, and it split everything. And that
they got into an argument, and okay, verse 22. "But Felix," now remember, he's a Roman governor, right? So I don't know that he cares much about this issue.
Right.
But Felix, having a rather accurate knowledge of the way, put them off, saying, "When Lysias the tribune comes down, I will decide your case." Then he gave orders to the centurion that he should be kept in custody, but have some liberty, and that none of his friends should be prevented from attending to his needs.
And after some day, Felix came with his wife, Drusilla, who was Jewish, and he sent for Paul and heard him speak about faith in Christ Jesus. And as he reasoned about righteousness and self-control and the coming judgment, Felix was alarmed and said, "Go away for the present. When I get an opportunity, I will summon you." So he was talking about just sin and the judgment that's coming and the demand that God has for righteousness. At the same time, he hoped that money would be given him by Paul, so he sent for him often and conversed with him. When 2 years had elapsed, Felix was succeeded by Porcius Festus, and desiring to do the Jews a favor, Felix left Paul in prison. Now, I said things slow down when you get to chapter 21 with Paul arriving in Jerusalem. But here, all of a sudden, 2 years. Zoop,
Right.
Paul is in prison for 2 years. Okay, so in terms of summing that up, I've just said Paul before Felix. I think that would be... I mean, you can include some other details here in terms of being accused by Tertullus and giving his defense before Felix, and then being in prison for 2 years. In your summary, you can do that. Or just Paul before Felix is totally fine, totally works. And this next chapter, 25, is Paul before Festus, who took over for Felix.
Okay, verse 1. Now, 3 days after Festus had arrived in the province, he went up to Jerusalem from Caesarea. And the chief priests and the principal men of the Jews laid out their case against Paul. And so this is 2 years later. The Jews are still wanting to get Paul. Mm-hmm. So they laid out their case against Paul, and they urged him, asking as a favor against Paul that he summon him to Jerusalem, because they were planning an ambush to kill him on the way. Festus replied that Paul was being kept at Caesarea and that he himself intended to go there shortly. "So," said he, "let the men of authority among you go down with me, and if there is anything wrong about the man, let them bring charges against him."
After he'd stayed among them not more than 8 to 10 days, he went down to Caesarea, and the next day he took a seat on the tribunal and ordered Paul to be brought. And when he had arrived, the Jews who had come down from Jerusalem stood around him, bringing many and serious charges against him that they could not prove. I mean, Paul here, in some regards, with all these trials, becomes a Jesus figure a little bit, like he's innocent and yet he's being accused falsely. But Paul argued in his defense, "Neither against the law of the Jews, nor against the temple, nor against Caesar have I committed any offense." But Festus, wishing to do the Jews a favor,
just like Felix,
trying to keep peace, said to Paul, "Do you wish to go up to Jerusalem and there be tried on these charges before me?" But Paul said, "I am standing before Caesar's tribunal where I ought to be tried. To the Jews I have done no wrong, as you yourself know very well. If then I am a wrongdoer and have committed anything for which I deserve to die, I do not seek to escape death. But if there is nothing to their charges against me, no one can give me up to them. I appeal to Caesar." Then Festus, when he had conferred with his council, answered, "To Caesar you have appealed, to Caesar you shall go."
Verse 13. Now when some days had passed, Agrippa the king and Bernice arrived at Caesarea and greeted Festus. So Agrippa is another Herod. Anyway, verse 14. And as they stayed there many days, Festus laid Paul's case before the king, saying, "There's a man left prisoner by Felix, and when I was at Jerusalem, the chief priests and the elders of the Jews laid out their case against him, asking for a sentence of condemnation against him. I answered them that it was not the custom of the Romans to give up anyone before the accused met the accusers face to face and had the opportunity to make his defense concerning the charge laid against him. So, when they came together here, I made no delay, but on the next day took my seat on the tribunal and ordered the man to be brought. When the accusers stood up, they brought no charge in his case of such evils as I supposed. Rather, they had certain points of dispute with him about their own religion and about a certain Jesus, who was dead, but whom Paul asserted to be alive. Being at a loss how to investigate these questions, I asked whether he wanted to go to Jerusalem and be tried there regarding them. But when Paul had appealed to be kept in custody for the decision of the emperor, I ordered him to be held until I could send him to Caesar."
It's so interesting here that it's just like Jesus, the Roman governor finds no ground of guilt. Yeah, like Pilate. Right. And in this case, Festus finds no ground of guilt in Paul, which is very true.
Yeah.
And the Jews are just trying to cook the system they hate the gospel so much, they hate Jesus so much that they want to get the Romans against him.
Verse 22, Then Agrippa said to Festus, "I would like to hear the man myself." Tomorrow, said he, you will hear him.
So on the next day, Agrippa and Bernice came with great pomp, and they entered the audience hall with the military tribunes and the prominent men of the city. Then, at the command of Festus, Paul was brought in, and Festus said, King Agrippa, and all who are present with us, you see this man about whom the whole Jewish people petitioned me, both in Jerusalem and here, shouting that he ought not to live any longer? But I found that he had done nothing deserving death. And as he himself appealed to the emperor, I decided to go ahead and to send him. But I have nothing definite to write to my Lord about him. I remember preaching this. I'm not sure you remember this. And basically, he's up there and he says, Paul is being accused of this, but I don't know what to write. I am ignorant. I need help. I don't know what to write. Therefore, I have brought him before you all, and especially before you, King Agrippa, so that, after we have examined him, I may have something to write. For it seems to me unreasonable in sending a prisoner not to indicate the charge against him. Absolutely.
Definitely.
Okay, and tomorrow then we'll hear Paul's defense before Agrippa, and basically he's going to say, well, you appealed to Caesar, you need to go to Caesar, otherwise you could have been set free. But it is chapter 19, verse 21, Paul had made it in his mind, he resolved to pass through Macedonia, Achaia, and then go to Jerusalem. He says, after I've been there, I must see Rome, and this is his ticket to Rome, as he was going to go as a prisoner rather than as a free man.
Not just to go to the city of Rome, but to get to appear before Caesar.
Yeah.
The emperor.
Yep. So. Okay, so that's the end of our reading today. Chapter 25 is Paul speaking before Festus, and then also before Agrippa. That's what he's before. Okay, so we will see you tomorrow.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.